Stop wasting your time at events. We're going to dive all into how to make the most of the events that you go to and how leaders, how those who are really building connections are building real opportunities in the rooms that they go to. So this was really top of mind for me because when I'm recording this week, I had multiple events that I was either doing virtually or in person. And there was a few things that I noticed for myself that I was doing to be really intentional in those rooms that I have grown a lot in that, just to be totally honest. And so I'm going to dive into what it's like to go to events, either whether you're networking, you're going to a conference, professional development, you're speaking at a conference, and some lessons learned that I've had, but also in watching other people at these events and sort of the do's and don'ts. So I'm going to be looking at a couple of my notes because there's a couple things that I really wanted to make sure that I talked to you about. So if you're watching the video, see my eyes kind of move to the side, it's because I had a couple points for you. So earlier this week, I hosted one of our executive forums. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but if you are a new listener, our executive forums, for those of you who are working within organizations who lead teams, this is for you. So we host executive forums just about every month. We've been doing this as a firm for almost 2 years now. These are virtual free events, but this is for you if you are an executive level leader within an organization. And we bring you together in one of our Zoom rooms, and we have a topic. And we switch up the formats, but sometimes we bring in panel guests. We've brought in panel guests from leading organizations to talk on topics. I'll share data and research that what we're seeing, but also what we're seeing with clients. And then really the point is to encourage networking and conversation and problem solving and idea sharing for leaders and organizations. So for example, some of the topics that we've done is things around how do we close the leadership skills gap? How do we upskill and reskill our leaders within the organization? How do we work on retention and engagement in our organizations? AI, of course, has been a hot topic. So we've talked about AI quite a bit on the forums, and we will be having more. So bringing in different guests, talking about what you can do. And we open it up for discussion, and we've got leaders from all different industries. And so sometimes you'll find commonality among the leaders who are within industries like yours. But also, if we want to start to really think outside the box, if we want to really start to open our eyes to different ways to do things, there is so much value in networking with people outside of your industry. And so we'll have people on here who are from recruiting and staffing and healthcare and financial services, manufacturing, all different types of industries who are able to really talk and idea share. So we hosted this executive forum, and this month the format was different than anything that we had done before. So we did a mastermind, which is actually we did a mini version of something that we do in our leadership programs. And I say, this is the most loved and most requested activity that we do in some of our leadership programs. And the reason is because we put some structure around it, but also it's really beyond the structure, really open for you to share something you're struggling with right now in a safe space. And then people pour into you by asking questions, by helping you get clarity, by idea sharing. It's always one of the most beloved activities that we do in our programs, and we'll do it. And people are like, can we do another round of that? And so I brought that concept to our executive forums this time for the first time. People loved it. We got done with the session and we had people in breakout rooms, and then we came back together and I said, how did that go for you? And we heard so much. We loved it. That was amazing. I got so many insights. I'm going to take this idea back to my team. So many things. So first things, if you are an executive level leader within an organization, and this sounds like a room that you want to be in, check out the show notes right now. Hit pause on this episode, check out the show notes, and go check out our upcoming executive forum. You can sign up for that. The one that we're going to be having come up next month is around, let me double check here. Oh, yes. So there are the Global Workforce Report has come out. as well as trends going on. And so we're going to sort of dissect the recent reports that have come out around global trends within organizations and the workplace report and what really matters for you as a leader, and then have open discussion. So check out the executive forum, sign up. Again, if you are somebody who's listening who is like an entrepreneur or a small business owner, not a leader within an organization, the executive forums are not that space for you. We have other types of things that we can invite you to for those as well. So happy to connect with you on those. So if you are a leader listening, go ahead and check those out. So that was one thing. And I'm going to talk about kind of the commonality around the executive forum. But again, it was really around the people who showed up in this room were intentional. We were really clear with what the expectation was coming into this room. And then some of the things that people did to ensure that they didn't just show up in the room passively. And again, this was one where cameras were supposed to be on, mics, you were actively participating. Sometimes our executive forums is a little bit more passive where we're talking and you can kind of listen. But so we had already set the expectation. So people coming in were already invested and bought into that. And so they showed up in the room open-minded, willing to connect, willing to share ideas, willing to ask questions. Those are the people who got the most out of that room. And then they were sharing their LinkedIn with each other. People were connecting afterwards, dropping their LinkedIn in the chat, sharing book resources. And so my first thing is around being more intentional. Like if you are going to take your time, which you should, we can get so caught up in the day-to-day of what we're doing that we're like, I have too much to do. I can't attend that virtual session. I can't go to that professional development day I signed up. I can't go for that conference or step aside from my work to do this thing. I get it. I hear you. Nobody has enough time in the day. Here's like the tough love part. But your network, your community of people, whether you are an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, a leader in an organization, a C-suite level leader, an aspiring leader, your network and getting in the room with people is vital. But it's not just getting in the room with people, because that's where a lot of people will fall short, is you just kind of show up, you sit there, you listen, you stay in your comfort zone, you might talk to people you already know, and you just hope that you get something out of it. The people who are getting to where they want to be through their network, we know if you want to switch positions, if you want to explore other companies, if you want to grow your company, it's about who you know and how you leverage those relationships. And so you can't just sit and get anymore. You need to show up intentional. And then the same thing with, I was speaking at an event. So I was really, really blessed and grateful to have the opportunity to be the keynote speaker for an event local to me. It was just a couple-hour drive and really excited. And so some of the things that I did to be intentional was, first of all, I made sure to try and figure out if I knew anyone that was going to be at that event. I tried to look up and see through this, it was through an association, if I could connect with anyone ahead of time on LinkedIn. Of course, from a speaker side, I was talking to the event planner. I was making sure I knew who the audience was going to be. Of course, I knew all of the logistics of what time I should be there, how long I would be speaking for. All of that is part of that. But also I was trying to figure out, how could I make sure I made the most of this opportunity that I was going to be at this event? And so asked to have a hotel room to be able to stay overnight so that I didn't just speak and leave, that I could really leverage those relationships more. And so I was able to stay for the conference the rest of that day and then also attend some of the sessions the next day. Some of the things that I really tried to do then was get to the session a little bit early, make sure I did a tech check, make sure I could meet the event host and the other committee members who, when you're a speaker, there's usually a committee of people bringing you in. So trying to meet them and say hello, get comfortable and familiar with the space. And then after I spoke, a couple things is if you're able to, if you're speaking at events or things, collecting, emails or giving freebies so that you can continue to stay connected with people. I collected feedback so that I could share with the event host the feedback that I got and figure out, and also it's a great place to get potential leads for other opportunities if people want to bring you in to speak. And then I made sure to stay and really show up for the rest of that event. So if you're listening, you're like, well, Julie, I'm not the speaker. If you are the speaker, those are definitely things that you want to follow. If you're speaking at events or if you want to speak at events, those are things to keep in mind. Make sure you know the logistics. Make sure you have a relationship with the event or the committee. Get there early, do the tech check, say hello to some people. I was able to, before I went on, sit at a table for lunch and I started chatting with some people, learning a little bit more about them before I even went to speak in front of the room. Stay and connect if you're able, if you're not heading off to something else. Stay and connect with people and build those relationships, because that's really how you continue to use the room that you're in. And if you're not speaking, you can still use a lot of those things. Oh, the other thing that I had done beforehand is I shared, they had asked, can I share this with on my social media and stuff? So of course I shared like their little image saying, I'm speaking at this event, and tagged them as well. So that's a really great way to do as well. So if you're at those events, making sure that you're giving it your all, sitting at tables with different people, striking up conversation when you're grabbing coffee, going into the spot where they have the vendors or the sponsors and walking around and chat. I had some great conversations with people just grabbing coffee, and someone was like, oh, I loved your talk and I thought of you for this book. You might want to check it out. So we had some great conversations there. I attended the happy hour afterwards and just got some socialization time there. So how can you be more intentional in those rooms? So I'm going to share a couple little like shifts to go from just showing up in the room to what being intentional, how do you approach the rooms differently? So the first shift is going in with intention and not just attendance. So how can you make sure that you look to see who is going to be there? Who do you want to connect with ahead of time? Who do I want to meet? What type of conversations do I want to have? And how do I want to show up in that room? The people who are leveraging their rooms they're in are doing those things. The second shift to make is, again, focusing on connection and not just transactions. Not how many business cards can I hand out? How many hands can I shake? But really, how can I build connection? It's not about what can I get? I don't go in going, oh, how much business can I get from this? It's how many new connections can I make? How much more of a network can I grow of people? Because maybe there's not your next opportunity in that room, but that person is going to connect you to your next opportunity. It's about not being passive. Again, if you're going to take the time to go there, you want to be actively engaged, be curious, be engaged, and be present. The third shift then is to really use your voice in the room, meaning ask questions, contribute in sessions, speak up in those rooms, build visibility with people so that as you're especially if you are someone like I'm an extroverted introvert or introverted extrovert. I've talked about this before as well. I don't love to be with people 24/7. Yes, I love speaking. Yes, I am talking to clients and in rooms at conferences. But if it was my preference, I would go to the conference, I would speak, and then I would go like hide away. And not because I don't want those connections, just because it takes a lot of energy for me. But I know that it's really important to stretch myself. And also I'm there to serve the people there, not just for the 1 hour that I'm on stage or in front of people, but I'm there to serve in other ways as well. And so just to the extent that you can, like for me, I might go to the happy hour, but I might not stay the entire time, or I might go to the lunch with people and things like that. But maybe, I'll do dinner on my own, or I'll do dinner, but not stay for drinks after, whatever you need to do, but really pushing yourself out of your comfort zone to build that visibility. And then the next day at the conference, people are like, oh, hey, how are you? Because you've built those connections. The other shift that you can do to be more intentional in those rooms is follow up. And this is where a lot of people, really fall short. So as a speaker, there's multiple things that I'm doing. If you're someone who's speaking at conferences or things like that, some things you're going to want to make sure that you do is, of course, send a thank you note after, or send a little note to the event planner. For me, when I collect testimonials or I collect any data around my speaking, I make sure that I share that over. I ask for testimonials testimonials and referrals from the event host, especially depending upon what you had in your contract and agreement. So I make sure to do all of that. I also was, at this event, very intentional about making sure I jotted down people that I met or connect with them on LinkedIn so that I can send them a follow-up note afterwards and just say, hey, it was great to meet you. And I also want to be able to be a connector for people. So if I meet someone and at some point in time, they are looking to make a switch or a transition, or they're like, hey, do you know this person? We've built that connection. So sending follow-up messages to people, connecting with them on LinkedIn, anyone that was interested in connecting with you further, making sure that you are doing that. And again, really just thoughtful follow-up versus just generic messaging. So of course, if you had a conversation with someone at coffee or at lunch, if you can reference something that you talked about. So let's see, a couple other things here. I think that's a lot of the things that I wanted to share. So if we kind of looked at like before, during, and after. So before you go to the event, again, making sure you're intentionally going to those rooms. Who are some people that you want to meet? What are some conversations that you want to have? And how do you want to show up in that room? And every event, you might have a little bit different intention. And then during the event is asking thoughtful questions, being engaged, starting meaningful conversations with people. And then after, you're following up within a day or so, depending upon how long the conference was, and you're building those connections further. So if you do these things, these are the things that allow you to actually leverage, and I say leverage a couple times, but that's what I keep thinking of. It's not just showing up in the room, it's contributing, it's making connection, it's turning that room into something else. And so I challenge you to think about this when you go to your next event. And it's just being in the room is really important, but just showing up there does not change things for you. It's how you show up in the room. It's how you follow up in the room. And it's how can you, I think also coming from that sort of giving, like what can I contribute to this? How can I connect people? How can I just show up and be open and curious to this event versus what is this event going to do for me? It's going to allow you to be a lot more open to those opportunities. So keep these tips in mind the next time that you are planning to attend an event, whether virtual or in person. Remember that those relationships really matter. And this is how you can build real opportunities and not just surface level relationships, but really build deep connection with people as you continue on in your career.